Hello, I'm Regina Botras, and this is Backstage, where we talk with the who's who on stage, in dance, comedy, and performing arts, speaking with the leading theatre makers of our times and how they came to the stage and what drives them and inspires them. Today we're talking about The Birds. No, not Hitchcock's The Birds, brought to the stage, but the reimagining of Daphne du Maurier's classic short story, which it was based on. It's playing at Belvoir Theatre from the 16th of May. It premiered in Melbourne's Malthouse Theatre originally, and the production is a one-woman work performed by Paula Arundel. What I hear is experienced through sound as much as through story. Joining me are two of the artists who shaped this adaptation. Louise Fox is the writer. She's known for her stage and screen work that reinterprets classic texts for contemporary audiences. Her adaptation of The Birds strips back the story to voice and imagination. Also, the director. He directed The Birds at Malthouse Theatre before coming to Sydney. He's done a whole lot of theatre making, including works like Picnic at Hanging Rock and Solaris. He's also currently Artistic Director of Adelaide Festival. Hi, Matt and Lou.
Hi. Thank you for having us.
Well, this story, I can't wait to talk about it. First of all, Matt's got to run off really quickly, so let's find out about the direction. Taking this production, I mean, it's played at Malthouse. When you first got the script from Louise, this is a one-woman show, as I've introduced it. What was your first sort of intention with the work?
I think the first intention was we wanted to make sure that this is scary. It's a very rare experience to have in the theatre. And Lou and I have been talking about we're actually talking about how we find the Daphne du Maurier story quite scary, but not necessarily the Hitchcock film. And a lot of it is to do with how an audience can conjure more scary things in their mind than doing anything literal. So it's really about the language in Lou's script and the sound design and Paula's performance that sort of should conjure things that unsettle the audience. And that was really the aim for the production.
So how did you find that unsettling feeling? Is there something in the embodiment of your direction with Paula Arundel?
It's certainly about, Paula has an intensely she's able to visualize everything in the show. So the more that she believes it, the more we believe the fear. But it's also very much what sound can conjure in your audience's imagination. So it's a very detailed sound design show. We want it to feel like that when the birds attack, they're actually attacking Belvoir Street Theatre. So it does feel like the rafters of the theatre are shaking, the roof of the theatre is being attacked. So we spent a lot of time recording real sounds of attacking the theatre to sort of generate something that for the audience should feel like it's happening in and around them.
Because that, apart from using film, how do you get that many birds and that kind of intense feeling like, that, I guess it's overpowering. Was it written into the script?
We always talked sound and light being the way that we would represent birds, because the moment, obviously, you try and get literal, you lose some of the magic of the kind of uncanniness, I guess, of the work. And I feel like capturing the uncanny. And I think the other thing that we do which is slightly different from the du Maurier, is we spend a lot of time thinking about the inner life of the main character who Paula plays and what she thinks and feels is going on and the kind of questions in her head and the kind of struggle to make sense of this. And every time it escalates or it changes or it shifts, it's so unpredictable what's going on. And it's so hard for her to understand that kind of constant mental and emotional struggle to understand this, and that the fact that we're so with her moment to moment as she tries to figure it out, I think also helps hold tension rather than actually representing what's external. It's also about kind of getting deeply into the internal, I would say.
And so, bringing this from the Malthouse last year and landing it into Belvoir, just from a director's point of view, what have you had to kind of reconsider in this moving of the work?
Well, you have to really. Belvoir is a very different theatre to where we were in Melbourne. And part of that is Belvoir, the audience, of course, are on three sides. So the audience are far more part of the picture. You can't remove them. So this production is sort of different to the one in Melbourne in that it feels like Paula talks a lot more to the audience directly. There's a much more complicitness in we're all in this theatre, in this sort of mythic space, telling a story together. It's much more the campfire story. So, uh, and that's one of the great assets of Belvoir. So as soon as you arrive at Belvoir Street, you want to use that really.
I know you have to run off, unless there's something you want to say explicitly about your direction or your challenge.
The only thing I would highlight is how the story really comes to life in the way that Paula Arundel as a performer holds it. Like one of the things that we talked about early on was making sure, as well as telling an incredibly, enticing, weird story, we also wanted to make sure Paula was able to be able to use every part of her, um, you know, uh, arsenal as a performer. So it really encourages a performer to push in every direction from incredible subtlety to being incredibly extreme to sort of have warmth and to having terror. And like it's sort of asking her to do everything, which is exciting always to be working on and working out what more we can push Paula to do.
We wanted her to have every color in the Derwent box,
Yeah.
was the way we described it. The 72 pencils performance.
Wow. Well, let's get into what those are with you,
Yeah,
Louise.
yeah. Let Lou list everyone, every
So coming into this work, yeah, we're saying, just for those listening, we're saying goodbye to Matt. He's got to run off. So much, anticipation in the lead up to the opening. With this work, well, yeah, how do you find those? I mean, I guess let's maybe just come back a little bit to how did you find your way into the story? I mean, obviously it's got this hanging over Hitchcock, life, but going back to the short story of Du Maurier, where did you start? I mean,
Yeah, well, we definitely, I mean, well, Matt and I have worked together before, and we were looking for something to do again. We talked about doing something like we said earlier that kind of was scary, that kind of dealt with thriller and horror. And then he gave me the story to read, and I'd read it years ago, but couldn't really remember it. Obviously, I'd read it as a kid. And then I read it again, and it was just immediately clear to me that the strengths of it were that it was still scary, that it was still pertinent, that the imagery was amazing, and the kind of architecture of the story, the escalation of the story, and the way it drew in all of the themes was just very clear and simple and strong. And what I thought was missing in some ways were characters. Like the lead character in the story is a kind of farmer who's come out of the war. It's set in the early 50s. We don't really get to know the people in the story. And so there was space and room in there for me to kind of deal with characterization. And so people who've read the story will recognize the architecture, I think, or the kind of structural shape of the story, although there's probably a couple of elements in there that diverge, but feel very much of our world. So I think we early on went, it's for Paula, and what kind of performer is Paula, and making a kind of the central figure of the story, the kind of key storyteller, a woman and a mother. And then she would play all of the other characters. And I think we then kind of broke it down in a way into beats. And then from there, I went away and found the language and found the draft. And I guess I just tried to make every scene different. Like I tried to kind of develop the imagery. There are some scenes where she's speaking to other characters and she's playing all the other characters. And there are scenes where she's reflecting back on a moment and scenes where she's addressing an audience and, she gets to sing and she does kind of everything. And I think I was looking to make sure that we kind of celebrated the virtuosic. Like I really love seeing actors do what they do, like being kind of athletes, theater athletes. And I think I was really And I knew, I knew that Paula could. I've been a fan for a long time, but I was also interested in seeing, like we said earlier, how much she could do, like how far this could go, how many colors she could bring to this story, and how far we could push her. And to me, like that's what I go to the theatre for. Like that's thrills me to watch someone who's kind of an Olympian in their field run a marathon, do everything, in an hour and a half. And I I love the fact that that is an almost impossible task, but we're with her and she's brilliant. So kind of what I get excited by.
That sounds very exciting and athletic. I mean, I was wondering how many characters, and I was thinking, oh, it must be just her being her, but no.
All of her family, I think all up we counted 10, really.
Wow.
But there is a lead character that she plays, a woman called Tessa, who kind of frames the whole story
Okay.
for us.
Okay. And is there a key, like when you talk about writing fear or writing horror, gothic horror maybe, into a script? Are there I mean, you talked about sound and putting the sound in there, but is there a key? Was there a key to find how to write horror?
Um,
I mean, it comes with so many tropes, I
yeah, we were
suppose.
talking
There's a
about that earlier
film
actually, because we
genre.
were trying to remember our favorite horrors. And, I think a lot of it is in holding tension, which means not answering every question up front. I think it's kind of asking questions, like trying to figure out, most of the time in horror, trying to figure out what is going on. And I think it's one of those situations where every time you answer a question, it kind of begs the next question. And so I think keeping the mystery alive and keeping the shocks shocking, but surprising. So coming from places in ways that you don't expect. And there's definitely kind of horror in the show when it comes, but it's not the horror that you might be expecting. So I think holding tension, surprise, and feeling deeply the kind of the anxiety, the fear, the desire to kind of make sense of all of this, and the practical drive of the characters who are trying to survive.
Mm.
And I think if we can invest in that story with them, we're kind of with them.
Hmm. And you mentioned, writing it to Paula, but I can't help but think, maybe there are three writers in, or four even in the story. I mean, you're writing for her, but there's also you and your voice as the writer, and Daphne du Maurier, and then the Hitchcock voice. Is it an amalgam of
Yeah, I mean,
those, or does it
I
have
would say the
its, yeah?
Hitchcock is probably the least present. Like I saw the film, I like some of the imagery, but it's not my favorite Hitchcock. In many ways, I think Hitchcock got the birds a bit wrong. I think a couple of things he got right, but I think the whole kind of romance, the Tippi Hedren, Rock Hudson romance. So it definitely, I feel like I come in conversation with the Du Maurier, certainly. And we had a workshop, and Paula has been there from the word go. So, I mean, I guess when I say tailoring it for her, it's like you're writing for someone's voice, you're writing for someone's voice and body and imagination. But I feel like, um, yeah, I mean, I've done adaptations before and I've adapted things from books into films and from, books into stage. And like, I find the process of adaptation really interesting. And I never, obviously you've got to choose the right project. But if it's the right project and you're working with the right collaborators, you're absolutely exploring and developing the work of the original writer. But I certainly don't feel like I'm not feeling my own voice in there. Like it'd be really interesting, I think, for people to know, maybe not everybody will, but the people that know the story to see the show and the people that don't know the story to see the show. Because I think it stands, it's set now, it's set in Australia pretty clearly to me. Um, we're not specific about where and what, but it feels very contemporary and the themes feel really contemporary. So adaptation is a great adventure if you've got the
How
right partners.
exciting. I can't help but ask, what kind of birds, if we're talking Australia? Are we talking about a specific bird?
And lots of different types of birds. I mean, I think that's the thing, is that it starts off in the story as one type of birds, and then it kind of grows. Ultimately, I would say we're doing the same thing that the Du Maurier does, in that it becomes a kind of universal bird problem. But I've definitely gone to local species as well. The locals,
How
yeah.
terrific.
There's definitely a magpie story,
Excellent.
which most Australians will recognise
Indeed, indeed.
from our swimming history.
So have we removed the romance?
The romance the romance is in the Hitchcock film, but it's not in the Du Maurier.
And is there a kind of
Yeah.
underlying moral, or like, what is the story? Is it her? Is it, yeah. What is the relationship to the birds, I
Well,
suppose?
I mean, I think the whole show kind of deals with the question of why this is happening and what it means. And I don't want to kind of give any spoilers, because I feel like that's a question that we keep on asking. But yeah, and I think everyone will bring their own conversation about our relationship to nature and what's going on in the world to the work. And I think, Du Maurier wrote it pretty much, towards after the Second World War. It was very much a short story based on a country that felt very anxious and was trying to put itself back together after the Blitz. I think for Hitchcock, it came in a different context. And I think we are going to read it through the prism of the world that we live in now. But I think that the show is open enough, and the metaphor is open enough and strong enough and complex enough. It's kind of not about one thing, but I think it's very much about how humans deal with catastrophe.
Wow. Look, I am so excited to see it. I can't wait. And I'm inspired to find the version and read it beforehand now, after speaking with you.
Yeah, it's just a short story. It's probably about 15 pages, but yeah, no one has to. That's not a requirement of buying a ticket, but it's an interesting thing to kind of see how things change when they change
Yeah, because
mediums.
how do you, like, I guess you're looking at, maybe was there some part of you that went, what is my reason for doing this? Or what is, I guess it sounds very collaborative. Like, what is the reason for doing it? And is it that,
Oh, I knew
yeah.
as soon as I read the story what I wanted to say with it. Yeah, like it was not even, I didn't have to think at all. The story felt immediately clear and resonant to me. And I think I had the ending before I even wrote one word.
Fantastic. I can't wait to see it. Thank you so much for joining me and sticking around, Louise.
Okay.
Oh, Louise Fox, and earlier Matthew Lutton there from The Birds on at Belvoir Street Theatre.